It's the Pete the Planner Show. It's the Pete the Planner Show. Every week I make up a song to start the show. I can't sing. You don't want me to sing. Alas, we are here at the Pete the Planner Show. Dame, welcome to the show.
That didn't come from Taiwan.
Do you ever wonder why I do things like that?
At one point in time I did, but I've accepted it as part of who you are.
Every once in a while, my wife will say, I don't believe you know what you're doing. And that was one of those times. Dame, welcome to the show. Hello, podcast listeners. Hello, live stream viewers. Radio, we're not to you quite yet. Dame, turns out Friday, we're recording here the 19th. My sister's birthday is tomorrow. Jameson weighs in from Texas and says, good day on Facebook Live. It's a great day.
It's a great day.
I've got a lot to do, so we're going to get to it. I say that every week, and we're not going an hour this week. I literally cannot go 59 minutes this week. We cannot do it. I cannot do it.
All right.
We're getting right into the show because I cannot do it. I can't do it with you, buddy.
That seems hurtful.
In 3, 2, 1. This week on the Pete the Planner Show, we answer your money questions. Here's how the show works. You email us askpete@petetheplanner.com. That's askpete@petetheplanner.com. And when we get your email, I'll read it on the air. And if you say things like, hey, strip out my name and job title and social security number, I absolutely will. Joining me, as always, is Damian Dunn, Chief Advice Man. I don't know. He's the VP of Advice at Your Money Line. Hey, Dame.
Hi, Pete.
I got on a roll and then I started just changing your title.
Yeah, I was wondering where that was going. I thought maybe I was getting a battlefield promotion.
Hey, Pete, honest question below. I'd like to know the answer for personal reasons, although I thought you'd like to cover it on the show. Given recent content around inflation and changing conventional knowledge about drawdown rates. Oh, I love this. My wife and I generally set aside between $50,000 to $60,000 annually for retirement, including employer matches. We have 25 to 30 years until retirement, and our savings is just under $500,000. It's $430,000. We max out one 401k, an invested HSA we do not tap for current expenses, and usually both IRAs. We're also funding 2 529s and making weekly contributions into brokerage accounts. We have a very aggressive risk tolerance, but assume conservative returns for long-term planning. I'm going to take a break here and just overshare for a second, not about this person, about myself. My situation it is different than this, but in terms of how aggressively this person is saving, I mean, that really describes me. I don't know if I've got 30 years left in the workforce because this person's clearly younger, but the number of things they're contributing to, HSA, 2 529s, all of those things is right in my wheelhouse. Despite all of this, the emails, most retirement calculators we've used show us coming up short. Because they assume we'll need 75 to 80% or more of our current income in retirement. Our income is slightly variable based on annual bonus potential and whatnot, but shouldn't we reduce the amount of annual retirement income we'll need by what we are currently saving? At the point of retirement, we'll be drawing down our balance rather than actively contributing, so it seems that it should be reflected in the assumed need. Okay, I've got two major beefs with retirement calculators, Dane, but you see the natural problem here, right?
Yes.
I mean, why do calculators do that? Is it because they assume that people are not going to reduce their expenses in retirement at all?
Some calculators will take that into account, and if you say that you're going to put $100,000 into it, that you'll only need 80 as it comes out, which is, I think, what they're saying here, because it's a slight reduction, but most people don't want to live on less than what they are now. Will they have a housing payment? Maybe, maybe not. Hopefully not when they get to retirement, but some of those big expenses hopefully do go away. Now, what we'll also see is that you're freshly retired, you're not going to work every day, you want to still go do things, and hopefully your health is still in relatively good condition, so you might go and spend more money than you did doing stuff, traveling, fishing, I don't know, picking up hobbies, trying to figure this all out. keeping yourself busy now that you've got all this time to fill. So you may end up spending as much as you do when you're employed because, well, you want to.
I don't disagree with you. Of course, I do agree with you. You understand the stuff better than I do. I would note, though, if you are purposefully trying to shed obligations as you approach retirement, it's not like you're going to gather a bunch of new obligations. I've had people email me, and I've written about it in various columns, where they almost go too far, where they're cutting obligations so much that they're afraid to spend money in retirement, and they got a ton of money. If you think about your work career from the time you get out of school and really start progressing through a career, most people not only accumulate obligations, they accumulate priorities without shedding past priorities. And that's what makes life expensive. And that's what makes life really stressful from a financial standpoint, is because your income's going up, but your obligations are going up right alongside, if not surpassing that level of income.
Absolutely. And that can be an absolute retirement plan killer when you start to look at all the obligations and the prioritization of those obligations going forward. So you've got to be really careful as you start to weigh how those are going to impact your retirement.
If you're going to use a retirement calculator, here's what I want you to do. I want you to make sure that it's not calculating your income need in retirement based on your current level of income. I think that's a bad retirement calculator.
I think it's the easiest way for the majority of people, because they aren't gonna, if 30-year-old Pete is looking at a retirement calculator and it says calculate how much money you're going to need a month in retirement, that's a tough ask, because you don't know what housing is going to be. There's all sorts of variables that could go into that, and you might get frozen up on that very step and not be able to progress. So the easier solution is to say, all right, let's just say you're going to need X percent of your income to live on based on what retirement planners observe and blah, da, 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 da. We're going to say it's going to be 80% in general. And that's what we're going to base our calculations off of. So asking somebody to figure out how much they need in retirement can be a very, very challenging question.
So, what we're going to do, and we're going to hit a couple of things, but after the break, we're going to come back and I'm going to walk people through their current spending and ask them to see how it changes at retirement. So we'll go through each expense category, and Dame, you get to be today's contestant on, will you really need that much? Okay, I got to say that again, because as I go and try to re-intro it later, I'm going to probably call it something different. So I got to remember what I'm calling the game show. Will you really need that much?
I can't wait.
I'm going to call it something different, aren't I?
Probably.
The other element to this too, which really gets into the game, will you really need that much? The voice is actually changing, not the words. I know there's two very specific categories other than retirement in which I'm putting a ton of money toward right now. 3, 4, that there's no way in retirement I'm putting money towards those. Housing, kids' activities, food, because my kids are eating up all the food, and then saving for their college education. That alone, dude, thousands and thousands of dollars a month.
Sure, but there's going to be a period of time between when some of those obligations cease and retirement starts. You're going to have the chance, Pete, to absorb those dollars into your lifestyle and not do something positive with them, whether it's saving or investing or giving to charity, whatever that may be. And so all those dollars that won't be spent in retirement could very well be spent in other areas.
I get that, but let's quantify this for a second, though. I mean, and can we ignore inflation for this conversation? Because you start getting inflation into it, then we talk plenty about inflation. We're acknowledging inflation. We're not downplaying the role of inflation. We're just tackling something else. Let's say the number's $5,000 a month, Dave, of shedding things that have needed to be shed. How am I going to reabsorb $5,000 in new expenses when all of these other significant things are gone? There's just no way.
I didn't say it'd be all of the money, but maybe the kids are out of the house and you and Mrs. Planner decide, you know what, we're going to go out and eat at some of our favorite restaurants a little bit more frequently because we really don't want to spend the time making dinner. And frankly, we enjoy supporting our local community and the restaurateurs and enjoying a good plate of food. So go out to entertainment. Maybe you get those season tickets to whatever sporting event that you want. I don't know, but I think to say that $5,000 goes away and you don't absorb any of that back into your lifestyle is silly.
I think we'll absorb 30 to 40% of that back.
Okay.
Okay, but what we're going to do after the break, we are going to go through the ideal household budget, what people should spend now, but then we're going to take a look at through the lens of how will that change in retirement. All of this great email from this emailer. That's why you email. Ask Pete at PeteThePlanner.com. Coming up after the break, the game will be called Will You Need This Much? Is that what it's called? I'm Pete the Planner. This is the show. I don't know what it's called. Man, I knew this was going to happen. What would it call it? What did it call it? Will you need this much? Was that it?
Possibly.
Will you need that much? This much? Can we play it back?
I mean, you could.
What do we call it?
It'll take you up to 59 minutes if you do, though.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, can't do it. Can't do it. We're moving on. I'm going to share my screen here because that makes for a good time. Why am I singing so much?
Nobody knows.
Oh, I just showed all sorts of stuff. Get off there. I'm like showing like... All right, can you see my... Am I sharing anything?
You're sharing you.
Okay. Maybe I shouldn't do this because I feel like I'm about to share like my entire life.
Let's not do that then.
Let's not do that. I'll just go through verbally. Oh my gosh.
Rick Swink and I need to talk. He's talking about Corvettes.
God, that was terrifying. Why did I do that? I
don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. By the way, Rick Swink. What a great name. Rick Swink. Do you think it's his real name?
Of course I do. It's on Facebook. It's got to be real.
Rick Swink. I've never heard the last name Swink. Have you?
No, but doesn't mean it's not out there.
Rick Swink.
Mr. Swink.
It's Mr. Swink if you're nasty. It's like a Janet Jackson. That's a Janet Jackson thing. Okay, in 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner show. Shout out to all our listeners. No matter where you're listening on all of our affiliates, whether your name is Bill Johnson or Rick Swink, we say hello to you. Dame, I want to go through the ideal household budget with a little game show that I like to call, Will You Need That Much? Is that what it's called?
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That's the name of it. We're going to go through. I'm going to talk about each category. And then I'm going to have you tell me, everyone, evaluate whether you'll need that much in retirement. So 25% towards housing is what I have allocated towards the ideal household budget. Do you think people will need more or less of a housing expense in retirement?
Are we talking in reality or ideally?
I'm going, you.
Me, less.
Okay, less. Okay, so I'm more than 25% right now. I mean, I am more than 25%, and that will come down. Okay, transportation is at 15% as a working person. Will you spend more or less on transportation as a retired person?
Maybe a little less, but probably a push. I've got a thing for cars. You know this.
That's true. You'll spend more. I will spend less. I just got a picture of you. I was talking about you as a retired person. I just got a visual of you with your beard graying up.
Like what do you? It already is.
No, I mean, like, I think at some point it'll be attractive, though.
Oh, I do too. I've already told my wife to prepare. Once I go gray on top, I might grow it out just to be that more respectable, distinguished, gray hair.
You've got a Mr. Steal Your Grandma vibe all about you.
They got money.
I'm definitely less on transportation. Food, 12%. Now, here's my issue right now is my kids are eating more and more. But to your point, I feel like I will eat at nicer places more frequently when I'm retired. So I'm going to say push.
Yeah, I'm very similar boat with you. Kids are growing and they think they need to be fed every day. So food budget is rapidly increasing. So we're probably, I'll probably end up spending a little less, though, would be my guess.
10% towards savings and debt. See, this is the thing. To the emailer's point in the first segment, I'm not going to resave unsaved money. The whole point of retirement is unsavings. I'm not going to resave unsaved money.
Right. And any surplus that does happen to occur, let's say you're a person or a family who has a pension or two plus a couple Social Securities, and you live a pretty frugal lifestyle, it's very possible in retirement that you could still have more income coming in than you spend on a monthly basis. So budgeting for that, I think, is silly, but it's very possible that you do continue to save in retirement.
Community 5%. Oh, I skipped utilities. Utilities 10%. That's going up. I mean, it always goes up. And with all due respect to our clients who are utility companies, it just goes up. It does.
Always goes up, and we've got all sorts of stuff that's allocated in that category as well. Cell phones, and who knows what that's going to be by the time we retire. And we're going to be colder as we get older, so we'll have to heat the place a little bit.
We're going to get colder as you get older?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking like room temperature, but I'm talking, you just, it seems like you get a little chilly.
That was like too visual.
What,
you get colder as you get older. Now, I remember my great-grandma, Cy, Florence Dunn, lived with my grandparents in Speedway, Indiana, and you'd go up into her room and visit her, and she'd have on, at all times of the year, flannel pajamas, stocking cap, and the world's largest space heater. And you would instantly start sweating. Like during my early years of my career, when I was a little chunky, I would go visit her simply as a weight loss technique.
A sauna.
I was like, yeah, I want to see her, but I'm looking to, cut some weight for my next match. Next up, 5% towards community. I think it goes up. Anytime we talk about spending 5% of your resources, renewable resources, which would be income and time, towards your community, as a working person, it's a give or take. As a retired person, I think you're going to increase both time and money.
I hope mine goes up when I retire.
5% towards entertainment. Now, I've always sort of thought this was a little bit silly, that the whole point of retirement is to do whatever you want, and do whatever you want is to some degree a way to talk about entertainment. I'm not sure I'm going to spend any more money on entertainment than I do now. I think I want to spend less, because entertainment now is really kid-centric. I don't like going places. Entertainment's sitting in my chair, sipping on some rye, watching crappy action movies. So I don't think I'm really going to spend more in entertainment. Do you?
I don't know. I mean, you might. I think you'll spend more than you think you will. You're not going to sit around the house all the time.
I think I will.
What kind of retirement's that?
I think I'll be really I'm going to be tired, and so I will be retired, like tired again.
You've said that you want to travel when you retire.
Yeah.
And so you're going to travel and sit in a house in a foreign country to watch TV in languages that you don't understand?
Now you've understood in this very moment why my wife doesn't care for me.
I don't think you understand what you're doing.
No, but that is true. I will say this. On vacation, I like to walk around where we are. And then beyond that, I just like being there. It's sort of a sit down and experience it. And Mrs. Planner's like, no, let's go swim in the ocean. I'm like, I don't want to. I think there's cuttlefish in the ocean and they could sting my feet.
Well, that's always a possibility. But Pete, we got to talk about some retirement goals for you.
5% towards medical as a working person. I mean, that just goes through the roof.
Goes up.
The roof is going up in flames. That's also why, and to the emailer's point, and to my point, that's why I'm so aggressive with HSA contributions now, because I view my HSA as my retirement healthcare strategy.
Yeah, the HSAs, as we've sung their praises multiple times on this show, fantastic tools, and if at all possible, you will not regret having money set aside for medical expenses in retirement.
All right, 5% towards holidays and gifts. I think it goes up. I think it goes up because your kids have kids and they have kids and those kids have kids. It's like rabbits. I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to buy the love of your grandkids to make sure that you're the favorite grandparent over the other grandparent somewhere else. So, I mean, there's going to be this competition going on all the time. And maybe even, make sure they've got a great little room to stay in when they come over. There's going to be some expenses there.
I would note that my in-laws and my parents don't get into that spending competition thing, but I have seen it from afar in other families. You half joked about it there. It is a real thing.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure there are plenty of grandparents that are knee-deep in competition with their opponents.
Next up, 5% towards clothing. To clothing.
5%?
5% towards clothing. Here's the thing. It's going down. I'm a clothes horse. I have in my life spent a lot of money on clothes. I will admit that. I don't actively spend a lot of money on clothes, but I don't also see myself as, spending a lot of money on clothes as a retired person. Although, well-dressed older gentleman is, Pierce Brosnan goals.
I mean, you sit around watching TV all the time, you're going to have to get some new clothes.
Really? Are you suggesting that I'll wear out my sweatpants?
No, I'm suggesting that you may have to get a few different sizes.
You're shaming. This is a shame-free zone, Dame.
Sorry.
No shame, Dame. 3% towards miscellaneous. That obviously goes up, right? 3% of your income as a working person can go to miscellaneous things. As a retired person, it goes like you got to get hard candy. Your hard candy budget that you hand to people is through the roof.
Be its own category.
Yeah. Travel wallets. I feel like flesh-toned travel wallets.
I could have done without that.
Have you, or what do they call them? Travel belts, or money belts?
Yeah.
Have you ever purchased a flesh-toned travel belt, money belt that you've laid across your body under your clothing?
Not yet, but the day is young.
Okay. Oh, we'll be back right after this.
Of all the reasons to miss a break.
Oh my gosh. The radio listener this week is going to be like, what was that? What's wrong with him?
Yeah, both of them expect it by now.
What's wrong with that man?
Plenty.
What's wrong with him? That man.
At least you're not singing.
Okay, let me go to the other email. What's wrong with that man?
I'm just hoping DJ Metronome gets a clip of that and drops it into one of his mixes.
What's wrong with that man? You ready to go?
Of course.
3, 2, 1. Back on the Pizza Planner show. Dame, got an email from a lady. Her name is Diane, and she lives not in our state. And she asks, "Hi, Pete. I hear everyone talking about tax loss harvesting these days." I'm going to pause right there. I hear people talking about pumpkin flavored food items. I hear people talking about the ineptitude of government for generations. And I hear people talking about targeting fouls in college football. I don't hear a lot of people talking about tax loss harvesting.
No. Yeah. Now that I think about it, no, people don't.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the hot topics in our house right now. The hot topics in our house, I have a 7th grade daughter and a 4th grade son. So Sports Center is what my son talks about all the time. And my daughter is genuinely trying to get me to bring her home bubble tea.
Yes.
That's my life. But no one mentions tax loss harvesting. I'll have to talk to my wife. Anyway, I continue. My questions are, what is it? And how do you do it? If I have a taxable ETF with Vanguard or something, for example, that's set to reinvest any dividends, is it impossible to harvest the losses? Is this for someone who only makes a contribution once or twice per year to fund or to one fund? Please help. Please and thanks, Diana. There you go. In her email address, her name is Diane. In her signature is Diana. Do you think she's trying to throw off the scent?
Could be. It's a risky proposition coming on our show.
Dame, what do you think?
First and foremost, tax loss harvesting only works in non-qualified accounts. Let's get that out of the way. If you're talking about tax loss harvesting, it ain't going to happen inside of an IRA or a 401k or a Roth or anything like that. This is strictly a non-qualified account deal.
And can you explain why that is? I mean, I know. I'm just asking you. I'm being lazy. You do it. You explain it.
Sure. So qualified accounts, IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401ks, they grow without having any annual taxes levied on them. So if you buy a stock for $100 and it goes up to 120 and you sell it and move into something else, fantastic. You did well. You don't have to pay taxes on those gains because you're going to be taxed when you take the distribution with your income tax. Now, if it's a Roth, obviously, you pay the tax up front. You get to take those distributions tax-free in the future. But either way, those funds still get to grow tax-free while they're inside the wrapper of those accounts. Non-qualified accounts don't have that advantage. Well, if you make a sale inside of one of those non-qualified accounts, you're going to have to pay taxes if you sold it for more than you originally bought it for. However, when we're talking about tax loss harvesting, if you sell it for less than you paid for it, you can actually use that loss to offset gains on some of the stuff that you may have sold that made money.
So, which begs the question that a lot of people have: why would you purposefully sell something at a loss? Is it, you know what I mean? Because the whole point of tax loss harvesting is to do that in order to offset gains. But it does beg that original question, right?
Sure, and you can sit around and play the mental pinball for quite a while on this, and probably come up with different answers almost every time. But some people, especially in higher tax brackets, who may have short-term gains, which are taxed at your ordinary income tax rate, by the way. You don't get long-term capital gain treatment, which is going to be, for some people, significantly less than short-term. But if they can offset some of those gains with some losses, they may end up saving themselves a fair amount of money by making that transaction.
So is most tax loss harvesting automated, or do you find most tax loss harvesting is manually done?
So tax loss harvesting has been done for ages. It's really, really popular with robo-advisors right now because everything's just math at that point. They look at opportunities to offset some gains with maybe a little bit of losses, and they do it. Or they're rebalancing, and they make sure they rebalance smartly to try and minimize the capital gain exposure on those transactions as well. But man, I remember in some of my early days in the industry, end of the year, I'd get a list of accounts and a list of transactions that I had to input to make sure that we were able to sell some stuff that had some nice gains, but then sell some stuff that had a few losses to offset those to minimize the tax liability to the client. And those were long days.
So we've clearly answered what it is. How do you do it? I believe we've answered. Diane is wondering if she has a taxable ETF with Vanguard, is it set up to do that? Or, I mean, I would argue in that situation, the point is what we're saying is she would have to get rid of that taxable ETF to go to another ETF to generate the loss, which is thus harvested to offset against a gain. So it's not as simple of saying you can do it yourself. I mean, you can do it yourself, but it has to be part of a bigger strategy.
Yeah, and then even if you decide you're going to do it, you have to be careful with what you buy after you sell it, because you start to wade into the wash sale rule, which means you can't buy, I think it's a substantially similar investment. Similar is not the right word. Identical may be the word. So substantially identical investment within 30 days, or all that hard work goes out the window because the tax loss that you tried to capture gets disallowed, and you're right back in the starting spot.
So with all the meme stock stuff from Reddit last year, you found a lot of people getting in trouble with the wash sale rule, going back into the same securities, trying to get losses and offset losses. So Dame, which begs the question, tax loss harvesting is legal. It is ethical. But that doesn't mean the government wants you to do it. Then that's why there's a wash sale.
Yeah, they've put a little fence around it saying, okay, you can do it, no big deal, but you can't just do it for the tax benefit. You've got to kind of move on to something else, or at least something different enough that we can agree that it wasn't just for the tax benefit.
Do you tax loss harvest, Dave?
No.
You don't have any services done that's done for you?
If it occurs, it's done via automation. I don't do it manually.
I don't do it manually. It is done automated on some of my money, but yeah, and I get those emails, and it's like, actually, I'm going to pull one up. I want to see. I want to give you an example of like maybe might not work. Might not work. Always good to stall on the radio screaming this might not work. It's not going to work. I was trying to grab a personal example from my email, but that didn't work. That's fun. Isn't that fun? You do stuff like that?
That was a good 25 seconds.
Oh, boy. So, needless to say, tax loss harvesting is good. It is for non-qualified money. You have to know what you're doing. You don't really want to get caught up in amateurism as it relates to tax loss harvesting because you'll defeat the whole purpose, and you could really mess it up. I would also note that this shows the value of having a good financial advisor too. I know everyone likes to do it themselves, but financial advisors are going to have the resources to help people do that in a more sensible way.
Absolutely. And this, I just want to reiterate, this is typically something that you would use for short-term capital gains, not long-term. Long-term, the rates are pretty darn reasonable. But if you find yourself in a higher tax bracket where you've got some short-term capital gains, it is something you may want to consider, and chances are you've got somebody that will be able to help you with it, and you won't have to try and figure the ins and the outs.
I have a long history of overselling how exciting this week's biggest waste of money of the week is going to be. But I have to admit, this week, I have got one that is heinously a waste of money. It's so ridiculous that it should almost be illegal, and the people selling it should be absolutely ashamed of themselves.
That's an amazing tease.
I was just thinking so myself. I was like, wow, I wasn't even paying attention, and that's what I was able to do there.
Well, don't pay attention more often.
Oh, I'm good at that. Okay, so Dame, coming up after the break, biggest waste of money of the week, a ton of current events this week. There's a lot in the business news this week that we are going to share with you. So Dame, it's going to be rapid fire round. You're going to need 10 to 12 stories.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Okay, all that is next right here on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. I like that I ran short on that segment, which seems rude to the people editing my show at the station.
Little outro, cover everything up.
Yeah, there's like they always play John Mellencamp songs on their flagship station. Of
course.
I can't do a John Mellencamp song. I just realized that. Okay. Are you ready? Do you have your stories pulled up?
Yeah, I'm always ready.
3, 2, 1. This week's biggest waste of money of the week right here on the Pete the Planner Show is Dame. The Green Bay Packers are selling stock. Why? Because they want to renovate Lambeau Field. Now, the problem with this is people don't actually get a share of ownership in the Green Bay Packers. When you do this, it's more or less a donation. There's no resale market once you buy $300 share of this. And based on NFL rules, this is my favorite part, if you own a portion of the organization or are said to be an owner, you can't complain about the NFL or you are fined. See, if Jim Irsay were to complain publicly about the NFL and officiating, all those sorts of things, he gets fined. If you're the owner of any part of an NFL team, you're not allowed to do that. And so what's wild about this is you both don't actually own the Green Bay Packers, yet technically aren't allowed to complain about the Green Bay Packers, and you gave them $300 so they could upgrade Lambeau Field, and you don't actually want them to upgrade Lambeau Field. And the Green Bay Packers, the money they actually generate should be the ones renovating Lambeau Field because they're the ones making the money, not a donation from the community to upgrade something that no one wants upgraded. Otherwise, it ends up looking like Soldier Field and the team moves out and a new replacement team goes into Soldier Field years later. That's this week's biggest waste of money of the week.
First of all, I don't disagree. Second, going aggressive against a very large fan base may not work out well for you.
Well, who am I going aggressive against?
The Packers.
I'm not against the Packers.
You're against the Packers fans for doing this.
No, not really. I just think it's insincere to call it a stock sale when in fact it's not a stock sale.
You get a certificate to hang on your wall, Pete. What more do you want?
I got a certificate for politeness class in 3rd grade. How's that gone?
What if you look at it as a piece of art that you're buying that hundreds of thousands of other people own too?
You know, I've been thinking about the star registry recently, where you can name a star after a girlfriend or something.
Sure.
Who really feels like they have the right to sell naming rights to stars? I mean, that's pretty aggressive, isn't it?
Americans.
Oh, I mean, that's uniquely American. I'm going to start selling naming rights to trees in the national forest.
That's a good idea.
I would have like, this tree, what do you want to call it? Oh, Rebecca Johnson. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. That's $37. Here's your certificate you can hang on your wall next to your Packers share.
There you go. By the way, I would like to point out that the Packers story was going to be my first news story of the week. So you've effectively cut down the number of stories that I can share.
Oh, you want to name part of this glacier? Sure. I'll sell you part of the glacier naming rights. What do you want to name it? Rick Swink? Okay, fine. This is Rick Swink the Glacier. There you go.
How about you name potholes around town every spring?
That seems aggressive. Dane, what's in the news this week?
There's a new silent killer on Wall Street. Electric vehicle stocks not named Tesla. Since going public last week, Rivian has more than doubled in value, and earlier this week it flaunted a $146.7 billion market cap that made it the 3rd most valuable automaker in the world behind Tesla and Toyota.
There seems like there might be a problem here, Dame.
It zoomed past Volkswagen in that process. Volkswagen is a huge group. Quick stat check, Rivian has no material revenue and delivered a total of 156 of its electric pickup trucks by the end of October. Volkswagen, on the other hand, delivers 10 million vehicles a year, generating annual revenues of around $300 billion. But let's not just pick on VW. Rivian's also more valuable than nearly 90% of the S&P 500 companies, including Starbucks, Boeing, and Goldman Sachs.
I've been trying to get my head around this. I know Amazon has a big stake in Rivian.
They do.
And which is fine as an Amazon shareholder. I'm like, hey, let's go. But it's eventually going to tank.
This seems like a whole bunch of FOMO to me.
Yeah, I mean, everything in investing feels like FOMO these days.
I mean, there's also another company, Lucid. Their car, the Lucid Air, just won Car of the Year on Motor Trend, and they brought in a whopping $232,000 in sales in the 3rd quarter this year.
That seems like a lot.
I mean, compared to Rivian, it might be.
Did you see this story this week that I'm probably going to steal another one of your stories? The Staples Center got renamed
Crypto.com.
Crypto.com Center.
Yeah, for 700. Was it 700 million? Was that what it was? 10-year rights for 700 million?
Or like 70 Bitcoin. You have thoughts on that? I mean, like apparently, I think it's Bill Plaschke from the LA. I might just be making people's names up. Somebody was really upset. Some sports writer up. I've totally just guessed of who that was. Out in LA, got very upset, and it's an affront to Kobe Bryant, the legacy of Kobe Bryant, to sell the naming rights away from Staples Center. And it's like, I mean, all respect to the late Kobe Bryant. I don't know if Kobe Bryant would really care that it's not called the Staples Center anymore.
I'm pretty sure he'd still play there regardless of what it was named if he was still playing.
Isn't that weird that I mean, these things change names. Like I remember when Mile High Stadium was no longer called Mile High Stadium in Denver. It was called like Sports Authority Field or something like that. Or,
yeah.
And it's all lame. You're like, I mean, with all due respect to Sports Authority, you're like, this is dumb. I wish it was just Mile High Stadium. But that's just the way it works.
Local example, Deer Creek.
Sure. Now I believe it's Ruoff.
I think so too, but people of our age still call it Deer Creek very frequently.
What else is in the news? Do you have any stories left, or did I steal them all?
No, I do have a couple. U.S. retail sales rose by more than an expected 1.7% in October from the previous month, showing that shoppers are burying any inflation worries under a pile of electronics, groceries, and new cars. Online retailers saw a huge 4% uptick in sales, which perhaps is evidence that shoppers are front-loading holiday gifts to get ahead of potential shipping delays, which Seems like that's all we've heard about for the last month is buy, because everything's sitting out in the Pacific Ocean outside of Los Angeles. Meanwhile, earnings reports from major retailers also presented a rosy view of the shopping landscape. Walmart said more customers are shopping in stores. Company said shelves would be stocked for the holiday shopping season, with inventory growing at 11.5% last quarter. And Home Depot also cruised past expectations. Seems the home improvement boom is chugging along as if it were all still in lockdown. So, bottom line, all this bullish retail news arrives as consumer confidence fell to its lowest level in a decade this month, and maybe our perception isn't reality.
Dame, how much rotting food do you think is sitting in shipping containers around the world?
I hadn't considered that, but that's not a great thought.
I know. That's all I think about. Every time I see like shipping containers backed up, I'm like, God, there's probably some cheese in there that has gone extra blue. Like that is my image. Every time I see a shipping container that's frozen, some people are like, "Oh, supply chain." I'm like, rotting cheese every time.
Yeah. That's a stinky problem.
You know, I ate yogurt this week that was 6 days past the expiration date, and of course, I Googled, "Can I do this without dying?" I think that was my long-term search frame, and it turns out you can eat yogurt that it just isn't at peak flavor. And I was like, okay, but if you want to talk about the certain like foods that you really shouldn't risk, yogurt seems like the category of like, I don't want to push it with dairy, you know?
Yeah, I would agree. One last real quick story, Pete.
Sure.
CVS is closing 900 stores over 3 years, roughly 10% of its footprint as it remodels its locations to focus more on health services. Companies making receipt paper are expected to be hit the hardest by the decision.
I was thinking of a good joke to make, but you already made a joke, and I don't want to one-up your good joke there.
Thanks.
Well done, sir. You know, my son calls yogurt sour pudding.
That's the best description ever.
It is. Like, it's really great. So,
yeah.
All right, Dame, good show this week. I believe we are off next week because it is Black Friday, and in lieu of doing a Black Friday show, I'm going to sit on my couch and really enjoy not being entertained.
Prepare for retirement.
Preparing for retirement, a little mock retirement exercise. So everyone have a great holiday season with their family. And we'll be back after the Thanksgiving holiday. I'm Pete the Planner. All right, so I just ended the show because I ran out of time. Bad timing today. But I will say to everyone else, I'm going to ignore I'm a mess. All right, Dame, I do have to go very quickly. So goodbye to you. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thanks for Thanks for being part of our community here. What do I say? Oh, stay getting money.